The delay game is real, but we are here. Hope everybody's had a good day. I know this is starting a little bit later than my initial stated time, but we had a little bit of delay in the process. But we are here now. That's the only thing that we can focus on. So as y'all coming in, y'all know what it is. Turn the volume up. Find yourself in a nice, comfortable place to sit. Yeah, make sure there's no extraneous noise, extemporaneous noise in the room, wherever you happen to be at, because we're going to get into this conversation. I'm going to explain. First of all, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to give everybody like 30 seconds to come in. Then I'm going to explain the topic, reason why we're talking about the topic, and then I'm going to address it. I'm going to give my points, as I always do, my supporting arguments, as I always do. Then I'll recap the points. I'm going to tell you a little bit about these publications I got here in front of me, and then I will answer any questions from the studio audience. So as y'all are checking in, if you have been here before, you know what you can do. You can shout yourself out in the comment section. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can be quiet and lurk if you wish. If you're on Facebook, I got Facebook here on my left, Instagram on my right. If you're on Facebook, you can shout yourself out as well. Instagram, if y'all checking in right now, go ahead and shout yourself out in the comment section. We're going to get into this in like 10 seconds. We're going to get started. I introduce myself, and then we'll just go straight into what we need to get into. So I hope everybody's had a great Thursday. September today the 10th. Yeah, so we moving along in this year. Nick from North Carolina, what's going on? And Nimrod from Brooklyn, what's going on? Those of y'all don't know me, and those of y'all who do, introducing myself or reintroducing. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, former 9-year professional athlete, author of 27 books, done 4 TED Talks. I'm the creator of this whole philosophy, this brand, this business that is called Work on Your Game. It's all about taking the mentality necessary to succeed in sports and teaching how this same mentality applies to business and life. That's what I do. I work with people who are in the business world, business professionals, entrepreneurs, freelancers, hustlers, brand builders, and athletes, of course. There's a bunch of athletes who know me from back when I was making basketball content, still messing with my stuff now. Even if you used to play ball, you're doing other things now. The Work on Your Game philosophy is not about sports necessarily. It's not even about entrepreneurship necessarily. But the frameworks apply to anything you could possibly be doing in life. That's why the idea is such a great idea, if I may say so myself. So today's topic, we're talking about, does money solve or can it put a dent in systemic racism? The reason why I'm talking about this topic today is because I just happened to, this morning, I glanced at Twitter and I went to the trending topic, and it showed that the Prime Minister of Canada, and I guess the Prime Minister is, I guess, equivalent to the President in Canada. I don't know Canadian politics, but the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but anyway, he had announced that they were giving like $200 million to support black businesses in Canada. I didn't read all the details, I just saw the headline. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, all right, he's not the first guy and probably won't be the last, but over the last 90 to 120 days, a lot of companies and people and businesses have come out and said, we're going to donate X number of dollars to start a fund, or we're going to put out some kind of grant program, or we're going to donate to black businesses or create this loan program or something to black people, whether it's education, whether it's voting, whether it's entrepreneurs, whether it's businesses. The NBA is giving money. Michael Jordan gave, what Michael Jordan pledged, was it $100 million? Was it? I can't remember if it was 10 million or 100 million. I think it was $100 million Michael Jordan said he was going to give. So when I saw that, I thought to myself, all these companies are just giving all this money and they want to confront systemic racism, or at least what everyone has defined as systemic racism. And there's a lot of, we're going to talk about that as well when it comes to what people are calling systemic racism and if it actually is systemic racism. We're going to address that a little bit. I've addressed it already. We're going to talk about it as it refers to money and the money that people are giving. First thing that I thought when I saw it, I said, all right, if I'm a business owner in Canada, or if the United States does something like this, or my city does something like this, or whoever does something like this, listen, I will gladly take the money. Now, if I'm black and they're offering me some money because this company or this organization or this government feels, guilty about black people facing systemic racism, and they want to give money to do their part and help out and show that they're down for the cause, fine. I'm not going to argue with their politics, but I will take the money. So tell me where I got to fill out the form. Tell me how much you're going to give me. I will gladly take the check and I will cash the check. Okay, so I'm all good with that. I'm not against any company, organization, whatever, giving money if they feel that's what they should be doing to combat what they consider to be systemic racism. All right, so make sure everybody understands that. What I'm addressing today is the reasoning and the story behind all the money that we're seeing companies and all that give to fight systemic racism, because I think many people, whether it's the companies giving the money, the people who may receive it, or the spectators who are hearing about it, I think a lot of people have some incorrect ideas about the whole thing. I got a couple questions about a couple things here, and I'm going to address all of them in this live. So anybody got a question, I will address them all at the end. You can post it while I'm talking, but I'll address all of them at the end in the order in which they were received, if there are any. Point number one, topic here today is, the question is, can money solve systemic racism? So I was reading a book by Thomas Sowell. He was talking about black leaders from back in the day, and he was talking about Booker T. Washington at one point. And one of the things he said about Booker T, who's a famous black leader, we'll just call him a black leader. He did a whole lot of things. There are schools named after this guy. Some of you might have went through a Booker T. Washington schools, a bunch of schools named after him. And Booker T. Washington once made a claim, not a claim actually, he was giving a speech. And what he said in his speech, when he was talking to an audience of black people and white people, and one of the things that he said was, listen, do we need to fight and end racism in America or in this town, wherever he was? Yes, of course we need to fight and end racism, but at the same time that we're going to be working with the white people to end the racist practices, and this was back way before, this is before civil rights. At the same time, he said, addressing the black people, we as black people need to make sure we are ready to do something with the freedoms and the civil rights that are going to be granted to us once the racism is over. So even though there's racism going on, that doesn't mean it's only them that needs to do work. We got to do work as well so we can address ourselves, because there are things we got to do to get ready for the situation, whatever it is. We got to be prepared for opportunity. So when I hear black people talk about systemic racism, I'm not here to convince you to believe in it or to not believe in it, but there are some things that I want to say about it. If you believe in systemic racism, and I hear people saying this and they claim that money in some way, shape, or form is necessary to repay black people. For example, for years you've had people talking about, well, we need to give reparations, right? Black people need to be paid reparations by the government. Maybe some program that comes out, like Facebook had a program. There are plenty of companies that are putting out loan programs for black creators and black entrepreneurs. The Canadian government is doing it. The American government is probably going to do something. And the NBA, all these companies, Michael Jordan, people have given all these monies. Billions of dollars have been granted and donated, rather, to some causes that are supposedly going to help black people and fight against systemic racism and fight against racial inequality. Okay, now if you think that is something that needs to be done, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong or that you're right. Let's just assume that if you feel that way, here's the challenge with all of that. You're leaving out the important aspect of human capital and decision making. That's the part that people need to think about. See, without knowledge and skill, because that's what human capital is. Human capital is knowledge, skill, know-how, decision-making, basically abilities that a human being has that they bring to the table in a situation, in a life, and whatever it is that they do. If there is no human capital in place, does it matter that you have a whole lot of money? Probably not, because as the saying goes, a fool and his money are soon parted. You give a person who's a fool, who has no human capital, they have no knowledge, they don't know what to do with money, they don't know how to make wise decisions, you give them a whole lot of money, what's going to happen? Eventually, they're going to lose all of that money. That money will be gone, and they're going to be right back in the losing position that they were in before the situation even started. Why? Because you need human capital in addition to money. Money itself is not going to solve a problem. Point number two. Topic here is, can money solve systemic racism? For anyone who feels like that may possibly be a problem. Unequal outcomes is not equal racism. This is something that I've talked about before, but again, when I keep seeing people give money, and people are like, yeah, more people need to give money, you need to do more, you need to do this, you need to put, I've heard people say you need to put skin in the game. Some company needs to give money and put some dollars on the line to prove that they're serious about helping black people out. And I've heard smart, educated, respected black people say these things, that a company needs to have skin in the game and put money in to prove that they're serious about fighting what's going on, quote unquote. That's the phrase people like to use. You don't know what's going on or what's been going on, you need to give money or you need to get educated. They can't even articulate what's going on, or they have some talking points. We're getting killed in the streets, they're killing our kids, white cops are doing this. We've already addressed that many times. We're not going to go over that over again. But if you believe that because you can compare two different groups. You can say, all right, black people are in this situation here, and white people are in this situation here. This may be absolutely factually correct. This does not mean, though, that it's racism that caused the difference. Just like, for example, if you look at basketball in the NBA, a majority of the players who play in the NBA, especially the star players, they're black, right? But black people are only a minority in the United States. It's only 12, 13% of the population, but let's say 80% of the players in the NBA are black. So is the NBA systemically racist against white people? Of course not. Nobody would say that. And why is that? If you ask anybody, is the NBA racist against white people? Somebody would say no. And I would say, why? Their answer would be something along the lines of, because to make it in the NBA is not just about what color you are, it's about what you do. Can you actually play basketball? Can you make a layup? Can you make an open jump shot? Can you run and jump? Can you grab a rebound? Can you play defense? It is based on your performance. The things that you do on the court determine whether you play in the NBA or whether you don't play in the NBA. And it has nothing to do with what your color is. Well, in life, in the United States, let's just say, is it 100% just like that? Absolutely not. I just had a master class come out today that said business is not a meritocracy. Now, life is not exactly business. Life is not exactly sports. It could be a little bit of a mix of both. But in life, can we all agree that there are decisions that human beings make that determine where they end up? I think we all would have to agree to that. Now, are there systems in place that can make it easier or harder for certain people to get certain opportunities? I would have to say yes. I mean, nepotism is a system where if your dad owns a company, there's a good chance you'll get a job at that company. And if your dad doesn't own that company and you're trying to get a job, you might not get the same opportunity to get a job as your friend whose dad is the CEO of the organization. Is that true? It absolutely is true. But is there somewhere in between the two that the decisions that the human being is making determine whether they get a job or not? Are there people who work at that same company where your friend's dad works and you don't know anybody, who work there who don't know anybody either? They just work their way in. They got hired in. They earn their position in that company. Of course there are. Are there people who want to work there who would never get hired because they don't know how to present themselves, they don't know how to talk, they don't interview well, they don't have any skills for the job, therefore they would never even be considered if they submitted a resume? They don't even have a resume. Could they get a job there? Absolutely not. Is that difference? The person who works there, who earned their way in, if they're white, and the person who can't get in is black and they're unemployed right now and broke, is that systemic racism? No. That is the decisions and actions made by the person with the job are different than the decisions made and actions taken by the person without a job. We have to factor that in whenever we're considering outcomes. So when we look at inequalities between people of this color or people of that color, people from this neighborhood, that neighborhood, people from this country, that country, people who look like this, people who look like that, and we're looking at the differences between them, and there's a huge gap in achievement between the two groups, we can't automatically say, because this gap exists, oh, it must be because of their color. Oh, the gap has to be because of their color. Well, this is happening. Black people are making this much money. White people are making this much money on average. Then that must mean that it's racism going on in the company. The company's paying this much to whites, this much to blacks. It must mean the company's racist. Not necessarily. What if the white people who are bringing the average up have more skills, more experience, and they are generating more revenue for the company than the black people who have less skills, less experience, and are bringing less money in? Is that racist? Of course it's not racist. It's based on the performance of the people who work there. And if they happen to be different colors and there's a gap in colors, then that just maybe means that the people of the color that are behind, they just need to step their game up. Maybe need to cut some dead weight, get rid of the weak links like I posted on my page today on Facebook and on Instagram. Maybe it means the people who work there need to work on their game and improve so that they can bring more in so that everybody's making more money. But it's not necessarily because the system is racist. Everybody understand what I'm saying here? So what I'm seeing a lot of in the media, I guess we can say today, including social media, is people look at these differences between different races. Specifically, we're talking about black people and white people. That's usually the ones that get compared. And they're saying, well, white people are further ahead, so that's proof of systemic racism. Well, no, it's not. Now, it could be racism, but that's not proof of racism. To say something is racist, you have to prove it. And just because there's a gap between where white people are at and where black people are at doesn't make it racist. If that's your only proof, then the NBA is racist. Because a bunch of black guys play in the NBA, way more than the percentage of our population, and of the American population, and is not as much white representation. White people are like 70% of America. Are they 70% of the NBA? Hell no. So that would make the NBA racist. If your only proof is the gap between the races, and that's all you need to show to prove something, then that means the NBA is racist. So anytime somebody tries to bring up that argument, just use that back to them and tell them that they got to come with a stronger argument with some more actual proof. When people talk about these, systemic racism, they never assess choices, they never assess strategies, and never assess decision making by the people who are behind in whatever race we happen to be talking about. So if there's a running race outside, any of you ever ran a 5K or a 10K or a marathon or a half marathon? Who usually wins those? The ones that I've been in, and I've done 2 marathons, I've done 5, I've done every race denomination you could do, I've done at least one time. The people that I see winning, usually these African-looking people. I'm talking about actual African, not African-American, never been to Africa. I'm talking about people from Africa who are in the United States for whatever reason. Maybe they live here. They go out and they win the race. I've seen them win 5Ks, easy. I've seen them win marathons, easy. Now, does that mean, since these black people are only 12, 13% of the American population, but they're the ones winning the races, does that mean that the races themselves, is the marathon racist? Is the 5K racist? Of course not. It's just whoever performs, their strategy, the training that they do, the way they get themselves ready for the race is, for whatever reason, their genes, their skills, their talent is just better than other people in the race. That doesn't mean that the race itself is racist. That's just the way that things work out. Sometimes in life, the difference between people is the simplest explanation. I believe it's called Occam's razor. Occam's razor states the simplest explanation for something is usually the most accurate explanation. When you got to start jumping through hoops and say, well, this and this and this, all of these combined is the reason why this is happening, the more assumptions that you have to make, the less likely that your assumption and your justification and your conclusion are accurate. So usually when there's a difference between the black person and the white person in achievement, whether the white person is on top or the black person is on top, is not because of the system and racism and this whole complex mechanism that's put together to make this person beat that person. Usually, it's just a matter of the actions and the decisions and the strategies of the people involved. So when the black person, if LeBron James is a better basketball player than Kelly Olynyk, who plays for Miami Heat, he's better. Does that mean is a systemic racism problem that's causing the black people to be better? Of course not. LeBron's just a better player than him. Simple as that. So if there's a white person in your neighborhood who makes more money than you, maybe because they got a better job than you, maybe because they're just smarter than you, maybe because they applied for the job that you didn't apply for, maybe they got hired at a job where you failed in the interview, maybe you showed up late to the interview, they showed up on time to the interview, they got the job, you didn't. That's not systemic racism, that's just the way that things work sometimes in life. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the most accurate explanation. So do strategies and decisions have something to do with people's outcomes? Of course they do. It has to have some effect, but usually when people are talking systemic this and systemic that, they don't even account for the actions of the individuals who are supposedly the victims. Point number 3. Topic here today is, question is, can money solve systemic racism? Money does not change the system. This is the funniest thing about when I see people say they're going to give a certain amount of money to fight inequality and injustice and systemic racism. They say, well, we're going to give $1 million so we can fight systemic racism. How the hell is money going to fight systemic racism? If the problem is systemic, and again, I don't believe systemic racism is the way that people are talking about it. I reject that idea. I've talked about this already a bunch of times, and I can refer you to where I talked about it if you want to know. But if you believe in systemic racism, okay, and somebody hands you a stack of money, what about the system? All right, handing you a stack of money, if the government of the United States says we're going to give every black person $1 million to fight systemic racism, so now I got $1 million in my hand, that has nothing to do with the system. If the problem was the system, giving me money does not change the system. All giving me money does is change the fact that I have $1 million more than I had 2 minutes ago. But that does nothing to the system itself. And if the problem is systemic, that means that no tactical action, no tangible good is going to change the overall outcomes that are designed to be achieved by the system. So if the whole thing is systemic racism is causing people to have these problems and to be behind the 8 ball and to cause them to lose, that means by definition, no amount of money that you can give them, no amount of advantage that you can give them, no amount of head start you can give people who are the victims of a system, that's not going to help them win, because the system is going to cause them to lose no matter what you do. That's the very definition of a system. The system is designed to produce a certain outcome no matter what. That's why the system is a system. So if we believe, black people, white people, whoever, if you believe in systemic racism, giving money can't fix it because the system does not change. If you want to get rid of systemic racism, you have to change the system, not change how much money you have, not change what job you get, not change who's kneeling before a game or putting on a t-shirt or any of that stuff. It is what are you going to do to change the system? Nobody wants to actually change the system because that would require real work. So people are doing the next easiest thing, which is the symbols and the gestures. Giving money is a gesture. All right, so when a company says we're going to pledge $100,000 to the United Negro College Fund and we're going to give money to the NAACP, now that is a gesture. Now, yes, they are giving money. It is real money. It's still a gesture. It doesn't do anything for the system. It doesn't do anything for inequality. If there's inequality between people, it's because one group is making certain decisions, another group is making another decision. It's not because there's a system in place. And if you believe there's a system in place, giving money does not change the system at all. So this whole thing, it just makes no sense whatsoever. So if any of you ever run into one of these companies or the person in charge of one of these companies who's saying they're giving money to fight systemic racism, ask them some critical questions like, what is giving money going to do to the actual system? They won't have an answer because the answer is nothing. It does nothing for the system. And anyway, it's not even the system that is the problem. It is decisions of the people involved. So if the problem is the system, what's your program to change the system? Have you heard anybody come up with a program to change the system? Only thing I hear is people talking about go vote. Go vote for Joe Biden. That's going to change the system. Well, it's still the system. The system is we vote for a new president every 4 years. That's the system. Doesn't matter who it is. It was George Bush, then it's Obama, then it's Trump. Next, it'll be whoever. Let's say it's Joe Biden. It's still the system. Doesn't matter who's there. The system is producing a new president every 4 or every 8 years. That is still the system. So how are you fighting the system by voting? If you're voting, that means you are participating in the system. I mean, listen, I can only talk to people who want to hear it. So when we're talking from a company, a government, or a person, what's the change from the system? But everybody believes in systemic racism, but nobody can make sense of this. I need Dave Chappelle to tell me where Ja Rule is so he can give me some answers. So all of that being said, I'm going to recap these points. I'm going to tell you about this book in front of me, and then I'll address any comments. I think somebody just came in with a comment. I'll address that in a minute. So this book right here is called The Mirror of Motivation, the Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. This is the first book of my 27 that you should read. The reason why you read this book first, and I made this book free. You can get it. Just cover the shipping by going to mirrorofmotivation.com. The reason why you want to get this book is because in life, most people have goals. Most people understand if you have goals, you understand you have to do work to get to your goals. The challenge for many people is they never ask themselves the critical question, which is, who do I need to be while I'm doing the work in order to get to my goals? The answer to that question is you need to look in the mirror, and I'm going to give you the framework once you look in the mirror to answer that question, who do I need to be? That's what this book is going to cover. This 150-page book, you can read this book in, I would say maybe 2 to 3 days if you're a slow reader. You can read it in one day if you're a fast reader. Mirrorofmotivation.com. The book is paid for. You cover the shipping. I call it The Mirror because it's not a book about me hyping you up. It's not me telling you what to do. It is me showing you how you are going to provide your own inspiration. You're going to provide your own energy so that you can repeat this and do this over and over again. Because listen, I do these live streams every day, but I'm not always going to be around to answer every question for you. You got to be around to answer your own question. You get that by going to mirrorofmotivation.com. The stuff you learn in this book is a very easy read, very short chapters. It's going to be ingrained in your brain, so you won't even have to carry the book around if you don't want to. You probably will want to, but you won't want to. It's going to be in your head. Mirrorofmotivation.com. The book's paid for. You cover the shipping. Let me recap these points real quick, and then I'll address comments. The topic is, does money solve systemic racism? Number one, yes, people, Booker T. Washington said, we need to end racism, but we also must be prepared for opportunity. So the thing is, human capital is important. If you're going to give somebody money and they don't know what to do with it, then they're going to lose the money. So giving money is not going to solve systemic racism if you believe that's the problem, because people still get to make choices with the money once you put it in their hands. Point number two, unequal outcomes do not equal racism. The only reason for the difference is money between different races, then racism should be officially over once everybody receives the money. But of course, that is not what happens. Why? Because choices that people make and the human capital that people possess determine their outcomes. It is not all just about the system. But, however, point number three, if you believe that it is about the system, giving money does nothing for the system. So why are you giving money? If you think the problem is systemic, why are you giving money? If you think the problem is systemic, why would you go vote? That doesn't make any sense. Voting is part of the system. Right? So why are you voting? If you think systemic racism is a problem, this makes no sense. People don't have answers to these questions. So next time you run into someone who's talking about systemic racism, ask them who they're voting for. If they say they're voting for, it doesn't matter who they say they're voting for. Ask them, why are you voting? Since voting is a huge part of the system and you think the system is wrong. Right? It doesn't add up. So anyway, any of you who know somebody, you go ask that question. When you get an answer, you come back and let me know what that person says. So let me see if I got any questions. I'm not sure we got any questions, but if somebody has one, I'll give you like 30 seconds to post it. Salve says, seems powerful speeches can change the system like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Nelson Mandela. No, I don't think so. I don't think any of their speeches changed the system. I think their speeches inspired people and it left a mark on people's minds. But name one speech by any of those people that changed the system. Not even Martin Luther King, the most famous speech in history, I Have a Dream speech. That didn't change the system. It inspired people. It is memorable, but it did not change the system. What system changed after that speech? No system changed after that speech. Now, black people won civil rights. It wasn't because of that speech. That was is a highlight, but it wasn't because of the speech. It was the civil rights movement, which is a set of strategies and a set of outcomes that black people worked to achieve that achieved civil rights for black people. It wasn't just giving a speech, because if all it took to change the system was giving a speech, then we go get Barack Obama. He's an amazing speech giver, and it'd be done. Or whoever, anybody else out there who's a great speaker, they give a great speech, it'd be over that fast. So that is clearly not the solution to this situation. So all that being said, everybody, I do these lives every single day. The times are different. It's not always at the same time every day. I will post this on the IGTV tab on my profile. Just go to the little IGTV button. That's where I put all these. And it's on my Facebook page /Work on Your Game. I will put this on YouTube, but it comes out like a few weeks after I publish it. And I do a masterclass every single day at Work on Your Game University. We coming up with a whole new system for that very soon. So if you're in, when we stop offering that, you can get in. But if you're not, then we'll let you know when it's available. But everybody, continue to work on your game. I will be going live again tomorrow. Don't know the time, don't know the topic yet. Just stay tuned to my story. Work on your game. We out of here. Dre all day.